My Fair Frasier is the seventh episode of the fifth season of Frasier. This is directed by Jeff Melman, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. I don't know how I feel about this episode. I think it raises some really interesting points, and there's one Daphne quote that I absolutely adore, but I don't really like Samantha, Sam, as a character, so whenever she was on screen, she kind of irritated me a little bit. Starts off at KCL. Frasier has given Roz a gift. It's this purse, and she starts crying. She had a date the previous night, and obviously she eventually told her date she was pregnant, and it didn't go well. So she's not doing great emotionally, but Frasier tries to comfort her. Frasier then returns the bag, or tries to return the bag, and the cashier won't let him. And to make it worse, the cashier insinuates that the bag is for Frasier, which he's not exactly comfortable with. And then a woman steps in and gives this speech to the cashier about the importance of relationships with customers, and if Frasier can return this bag now, he'll know the store cares about his needs and will come back and buy more, which honestly makes logical sense. Frasier can return the purse. This woman is, of course, Samantha Pierce, played by Lindsay Frost, and Frasier ends up inviting her to dinner. And back at the apartment, he's really excited about this. It is great seeing Frasier happy, looking forward to a date. Niles comes over. They're supposed to be going to a boat show with Martin. And Niles takes Frasier out onto the balcony, which I love. I love going out on the balcony. It's so gorgeous. And talks with Frasier about how they have a pact. If they're going to an event with Martin, they both need to be there. Frasier placates Niles by giving his ticket to Daphne, so he's pretty happy. And Frasier happens to mention that he's going on a date with somebody called Samantha Pierce, and it just so happens that in that moment, she's on Larry King, on the television, and Larry King is, of course, in this as well. Pretty cool. And it turns out she's a lawyer defending the butcher knife killer. And Frasier had previously suggested that maybe she was nervous about dating him because he was famous. But then we learn on the TV show that she's dated a lot of famous people. And the conversation turns to how maybe people who date famous people just want to date somebody ordinary. And Daphne ends up going on a tangent about how she dated somebody who once dated a lot of actresses. And to quote, "He did get me an autographed picture of Helena Bonham Carter. She's riding a pony." I love HBC. I have a HBC tattoo. So when I first watched this episode and heard that, I laughed for a very long time. I knew it was coming this time round, but I still found it to be very, very amusing. That made me rather happy. We're then in the restaurant with Frasier and Samantha, and she's had a long day. She just wants to go back and have sex, which they do. Everybody else comes into the apartment. They meet her. She leaves. And then the next scene, they're cooking together, Frasier and Samantha, in his kitchen, but she gets a notification from work that she has to go and work. And once she leaves, Niles and Martin are coming in. And Frasier tells him that he feels vaguely unsettled about the relationship. And I thought it was pretty obvious why he was feeling that way, but maybe not to Frasier, and Niles suggested that it was because he was in a more submissive role. Usually he is the one, well, I guess, calling the shots and making the arrangements, deciding where they go. He is the one, of course, with more fame, and usually his schedule is, I don't want to say more important, but certainly that might be how he feels. And to reinforce this, Samantha quickly pops upstairs to give Frasier some flowers because somebody downstairs was selling them. And obviously, traditionally, it would have been Frasier giving the woman flowers. And I definitely think that raises an interesting point. Should there even be a more submissive role in a relationship? I feel like certainly more today, equality is more important, but I do think there are some people who still value that more traditional approach of the man dominating the relationship, the female in the more, obviously when I'm talking about heterosexual relationships, the female being in the more submissive role. So I think because some people will have different opinions, it probably means it's harder to find the perfect match than it would have been once upon a time. But nevertheless, Frasier goes to this lawyer event with Samantha, really nice event, some gorgeous costumes, nice atmosphere, and he meets this group of women whose husbands and fiancés are all lawyers, and they're all talking about how this is just part of dating a lawyer, but you get used to it and you'll get some flowers. And Frasier's still not feeling great about this, so he confronts Samantha. And maybe understandably, she's not happy with this because he's basically saying, your career should not come before me. And considering they've only been dating for a matter of days, that's a big, bold thing to say. And he wants a more equal relationship, which I do think is fair. So it's definitely a very awkward situation because Samantha shouldn't have to give up or care less about her career, but at the same time, Frasier wants that equality. Basically, I think it means they're not a perfect match here because they're wanting or able to give different things. However, she presents him with a Cartier watch, and Frasier's pretty happy in the meantime. The final scene is Roz going through a lot of emotions in a really short space of time. It's not a bad episode. I do think it raises a lot of really interesting points about equality in relationships and different roles and different expectations. And as I said, I think there are definitely couples who like having that submissive and dominant relationship, and there are some who prefer equality. To be fair, I'm not saying Frasier necessarily wants equality. I think he either wants equality or he wants to be the more dominant one. I just don't think he likes this submissive role, which is fair enough. I think that's completely reasonable. So definitely raises some interesting points and I think could generate a lot of important discussions. It's not really a funny episode. I think the HBC, Helena Bonham Carter reference, well, that makes me laugh, but I don't know if that would be funny to many people. And other than that, maybe not very funny, but definitely very interesting. I don't really love Samantha as a character. I don't really know why. I just found her a bit irritating. Maybe it's because I don't think she's right for Frasier. So I'm automatically kind of wanting to push her away because of that. It's not a favourite episode, but I think there's a lot of value in this one. And in general, My Fair Frasier is not too bad.